Zoning Commission is generally an advisory body to the City Council. The City Council will hold a public hearing and make the final decision on all matters before the Commission, other than site plans and subdivision plots, unless denials or conditional approvals thereof are appealed. Please contact the City Clerk or Community Development Department staff at 515-689-9485 for details on council hearings. Applicant will be given 10 minutes to present the request. If applicants wish to share materials not already submitted with the application, please email them to planning@dmgov.org so a staff host may be able to share them on the screen when you present. Proponents and then opponents from the public are then allowed to speak in that order, with each speaker allowed a maximum of 5 minutes. Staff has attempted to compile a list of people who would like to speak on each item. Staff will first call on these people and then open it up to anyone else who wishes to speak. To request to speak during the hearing, please use the raise hand function on Zoom webinar via internet or dial *9 on your phone. This is important. So for those of you listening, please use the raise hand function on Zoom or dial *9 on your phone. You will be required to give your name and address for the record prior to speaking. Also, we ask that you keep your microphones and phones on mute unless you've been given the chance to address the commission by the chair. The applicant is given 5 minutes for rebuttal if any opponent spoke. All comments are to be germane to the item under consideration, and speakers are to maintain a courteous manner. The hearing will then be closed, and the commission will discuss and vote on the issue. Items listed on the consent portion of the agenda will not be individually discussed and will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report, unless an individual present or member of the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately under the public hearing agenda. The City of Des Moines is pleased to provide accommodations to individuals or groups with disabilities and encourages participation in city government. Please know that typical accommodations may be limited by emergency requirements as issued by the state of Iowa and the City of Des Moines. I believe we have a quorum, correct, Tyler?
Yeah, that is correct. I'm showing everybody present besides Lisa Howard, which informed me she would be out of town tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll take roll call.
Abby Chunga.
Here.
Rocky Spizzato.
Here.
Rocky. Thank you. Will Page.
Here.
Kayla Berkson.
Here.
Emily Webb.
Here.
Dory Browse.
Here.
Jan Freed.
Here.
Johnny Alcivar.
Here.
Steve Wallace.
Here.
Carolyn Jennison.
Here.
Francis Bogus.
Here.
Greg Wattier.
Here.
And Greg Jones.
Here.
13 members present.
Thank you, Tyler. Do we have any corrections or any comments, or somebody want to make a motion on the minutes from the meeting July 16th?
I move to adopt the minutes from July 16, 2020.
Thanks, Will. Vote. Tyler?
Greg Jones.
Yes.
Abby Chunga.
Abstain.
Greg Wattier.
Approve.
Francis Bogus.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
Steve Wallace.
Yes.
Kayla Berkson.
Yes.
Jan Freed.
Yes.
Dory Browse.
Yes.
Emily Webb. Will Page,
Yes.
and Rocky Spizzato.
Yes.
Motion to approve minutes passes 12-0-1.
Thank you, Tyler. Now we're going to,
Chair, just
Yes.
very quickly,
oh, yes.
I don't know if it's just my speakers, but I'm having a hard time hearing Kayla Berkson speak when the roll calls are made. I don't know if there's a way that we can, she can check into that while we're having the presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Mike, now we'll turn our attention to the consent items on the agenda. Item number 1, city-initiated request for property located at 4104 Amherst Street, the vacated alley immediately adjoining 4101 Amherst, 4102 North Union Street, and lots 18 and 19 Madison Gardens. The subject property is owned by True Bible Baptist Church and City of Des Moines. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this item? Or pull this item? Is there anyone in the audience, anyone online who would like to hear this item? You can raise your hand in Zoom or *9 on your phone. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to item number 2. Item number 2 is a request from Lawmark LP to designate the financial center property located at 606 to 666 Walnut Street and 207 7th Street as a local landmark. Is there anyone on the commission who wants to pull this item? Is there anyone online who would like to hear this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3. Request from Iowa Labor's Education and Training Trust Fund, represented by Mike Weckman, for review and approval of a PUD final development plan, Iowa Labor's training facility for property located at 4560 East 46th Street to allow development of a 15,000 square foot indoor training and storage facility with an outdoor training ground. Is there anyone on the commission who would like to hear this item? Is there anyone online who would like to hear this item? Again, raise your hand on Zoom or *9 on your phone. I'm not seeing any hands up. We'll move on to item number 4. Request from Samuel and Elizabeth Waters for review of the following type 2 design alternatives in accordance with chapter 135, section 135-9.2.4b and 135-9.3.1b for property located at 1511 Beaver Avenue to allow construction of a 5-foot by 13.5-foot 1-story kitchen addition with crawl space on the northwest side of the existing 2-story house within 12 feet of the northwest side property line. The project was reviewed as a house type A in an N1B neighborhood district. Is there anyone on the commission who would like to hear this item? Is there anyone online who would like to hear this item? I see a hand. Sam Waters, is that true? I see a hand. So.
Yes, it's true.
Okay, so we will hear number 4. We'll pull that.
If I could interject.
Yes.
Sam's the applicant, I believe. Do you understand that the staff is recommending approval? Was there something in the conditions that you didn't agree to?
I just wanted to make sure I understood what B was more about.
Your proposal, you're asking for relief of the basement requirement.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're recommending approval of that.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I needed to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will keep item number 4 on consent. So thank you for clearing that up. Item number 5, request from Casey and Tammy Simpson for review of the following type 2 design alternative in accordance with chapter 135, section 135-9.2.4B and 135-9.3.1B for property located at 5635 Southeast 19th Street for 7 feet and 4 inches over the maximum 14-foot story height per section 135-2.15.3B.14 for 21 feet 4 inches of total story height, which would allow construction of a 2,820 square foot indoor pool addition, a 376 square foot dining room addition, and a 501 square foot deck enclosure to the north and west, the existing 1-story house. Anyone on the commission who would like to hear this item? Anyone online who would like to hear this item? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Item number 6, request from Fred and Charlotte Hubble for review of the following type 2 design alternative in accordance with chapter 135, section 135-9.2.4B and 135-9.3.1B for property located at 3721 Lincoln Place Drive to allow construction of a 19.75 foot by 17 foot sunroom addition to the northeast side of the existing 1-story house to be reviewed under house type D requirements in an N5 neighborhood district with waiver to allow 34.75 feet over the maximum permitted 60 feet of building width per section 135-2.16.3.A.7 for 94.75 of total building width with the addition. Anyone on the commission who would like to hear this item? Anyone online who would like to hear this item? Okay, so we have items 1 through 6 on consent.
And Madam Chair, this is Bert with the city. Item number 10, staff is comfortable moving to the consent agenda. We've recommended approval and the applicant is in agreement with the recommended conditions. So if the commission is comfortable, you could possibly move item number 10 to the consent agenda.
Okay, thanks, Bert. So item number 10, request from Hamilton's Funeral Home represented by Sasha Mudloff for the properties located at 5310, 5314, and 5400 Southwest 9th Street. Additional subject property is owned by Carlton Peterson and Carlton Peterson Trust. Is there anyone on the commission who would like to hear this item? Is there anyone online who would like to hear this item? Okay. Do I have a motion from someone on the commission?
This is Dory. I'll move placing item 10 on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Dory. Tyler, roll vote.
Steve Wallace,
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison,
Yes.
Francis Bogus,
Yes.
Greg Wattier.
I need to abstain from item number 2, but all the others I approve.
We're voting on 10, Greg.
Oh, I'm sorry, moving it up. Sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Greg Jones,
Yes.
Abby Chungus,
Yes.
Rocky Sposato,
Yes.
Will Page,
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar,
Yes.
Emily Webb,
Yes.
Dory Briles,
Yes.
Jan Freed,
Yes.
and Kayla Berkson.
Yes.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thanks, Tyler. So we have items 1 through 6 and item number 10 to be moved to are now on the consent agenda. So now it's time to vote on the consent agenda. Tyler?
Abby Chungus,
Yes.
Rocky Sposato,
Yes.
Will Page,
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar,
Yes.
Emily Webb,
Yes.
Dory Briles,
Yes.
Jan Freed,
Yes.
Kayla Berkson,
Yes.
Steve Wallace,
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison,
Yes.
Francis Bogus,
Yes.
Greg Wadier,
Try this again. I need to abstain on 2 and I approve the others.
okay, and Greg Jones.
Yes.
Dan, did we have somebody move the consent agenda?
Oh,
I'll move the consent agenda just to get it done.
okay. We voted on the consent agenda and now it's moved.
Thank you, Jan.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Will. So we have voted on a consent agenda.
That is correct.
Is that okay, Mike? Are we good to go? Okay. We're on item number 7, public hearing items. Item number 7 is request from Anchor Investment Group, LLC, represented. Okay, I just lost it here. Hold on a second. Okay. Represented by Michael Donlin. Part A is determination as to whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with the planned DSM, creating our tomorrow comprehensive plan. Part B, amend plan DSM, creating our tomorrow comprehensive plan to revise the future land use classification from low medium density residential to high density residential. And part C, rezone property from N3C neighborhood district to NX2 neighborhood mixed district to allow demolition of the existing house building type and detached garage with household living and redevelop with a 5-unit row building type with household living. Jason?
Yeah, members of the commission, Jason Van Essen with the city planning staff. Chair did a great job of introducing the item. Let me show you a map of the subject property. Here we go. Hopefully that's showing up on your screen. The property is located on the, I guess you would refer to as the southwest corner of the intersection of Shaw Street and Southeast 9th Street. This is an area that's kind of south of the Market District, which, our 5:30 session talked a lot about the Market District, but this is a little further south just to get you oriented. Property contains existing single-family building that would be proposed to be demolished. Tonight we're considering an amendment to the land use plan and then a rezoning. The applicant did provide some conceptual ideas about how the site would be laid out, but would have to come back with the site plan and go through that process. So anything that we see tonight on the site plan or the drawings I'm going to show you, this is just kind of conceptual to give you an idea of what it is they're wanting to do. Looking at 5 row units oriented towards 9th Street or oriented towards the east. General concept of what they might look like. Rear loaded. Some elevation drawings. In the staff report, there's really 2 things going on here. There's the land use plan amendment, and then there's the rezoning. And the zoning that's there today, N3C, would not allow the row house unit. However, the existing low medium density residential designation for this area
You mean? Yeah. Huh?
would allow
I don't. What's it matter? Yeah, whatever you want to do.
sounds like
Yeah.
maybe somebody has their mic.
Yes, everyone needs to be on mute except for the presenter. Thank you.
Gotta love technology. So where I was heading is that so we have a rezoning from a designation that's focused on single family development to a zoning that allows row home development. Both of those zoning designations are allowed in the low medium density residential designation that covers this broader area. And you might remember, I think it was earlier this year, we had a rezoning proposal from the same applicant for a similar project to the south of here, closer to the levee, to the river. In this case, the land area that they have is small enough that they couldn't get the desired number of units on that lot without amending the land use plan to high density residential. And so the zoning conforms, but the intended use, intended development pattern does not. And so when we review site plans, we do have to make sure part of the criteria in reviewing that is to make sure that they conform to the future land use map and the plan DSM. So even though density or the number of units is really set by Chapter 135, which is our planning and design ordinance and not the zoning ordinance, we still have to make sure that that site plan would conform with the future land use map. So that's why, even though both of these zonings that we're looking at both comply with low medium, we do need that. The applicant would need the high density designation to be able to do anything more than 3 units on this parcel. So jumping into staff recommendation, this is a little bit unusual for us, and that's why I gave you kind of a lengthy overview. But we are recommending denial of the amendment to the future land use map. We think that this is kind of in the middle of an area. It's also not enough land really in our minds to warrant changing to a high desi designation where, we really feel like you need to have some logical transition to surrounding uses. Perhaps if this was at the periphery, more further north, closer to the market district, maybe it would make sense. In this case, as staff, we believe that the low medium density designation is what is the best designation for this site at this time. So we're recommending denial of Part B. However, and I see a typo, Part C, we're recommending approval. We think that NX2 zoning is appropriate for this area. We rezoned half a block for the for this applicant not too long ago. Like I said, to the south of here, same neighborhood. So that's the basis of our recommendation. This is the response map. We got a few cards back. I'll go ahead and flip through those and let you read them. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have for staff.
Questions for Jason?
This is Johnny Elsinore. I have a question for Jason. Jason, thank you for that presentation. My question with the staff recommend they approve the rezoning, but not the amendment to Plan DSM. Would that essentially put the pressure on the applicant to come back with a different proposal that complies with the approved?
Well, it would basically limit them to 3 units on that parcel. So they could do 3 row units, or they could come up with a different idea for the property. The other alternative that I suggested they look at is trying to acquire more land and, come back at a later date with more land. So those are kind of the different options captions. The zoning, it does conform, that particular zoning district does conform with the land use map, but it just so happens we know their intended density doesn't.
Other questions for Jason?
Yeah, Jason, this is Greg Wattier. So max 3 if we accept your recommendation. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is the applicant online?
I'm not seeing the applicant. I don't know if anybody's here tonight to represent him. I'd reached out to him and hadn't heard back. If somebody's here to represent the applicant on this item, please use the raise hand function or hit *9 on your phone. I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay, I'm not seeing anyone either. So is there anyone who wants to speak on this item? Or again, for, in favor, or has concerns? Okay, I don't think so. All right. Well, it's time to close the public hearing. Discussion from the commission.
Chair, seeing none, I would move this item for approval per the staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
A second.
Thank you. Tyler?
Dory Browse,
Yes.
Jan Freed,
Yes.
Kayla Berkson,
Yes.
Steve Wallace,
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison,
Yes.
Francis Bogus,
Yes.
Greg Wattier,
Yes.
Greg Jones,
Yes.
Abby Chungus,
Abstain.
Rocky Esposado,
Yes.
Will Page, Johnny Alcivar,
Yes.
Emily Webb.
Yes.
Will, are you with us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Thanks, Will.
So motion for item 7 carries 12-01.
Okay, thank you, Tyler.
Jan, it's Will here. Could I just make one comment about this? I know it's out of place, but I will anyway. I think the design, the front gable design with the steep pitched roofs is a very good design for the neighborhood. It fits in, and I applaud the applicant for.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Will. We are now on item number 8. Request from Jill and Paul Von Evers. Review of the following type 2 design alternative in accordance with chapter 135, section 135-9.2.4b and 135-9.3.1b to allow construction of a 2-story house type A in an N1A neighborhood district with waiver of the required public sidewalk installation per section 135-8.5.2a. And this is Jason.
Chair, members of the commission, Jason Van Essen with the planning staff. Let me make it a little easier to see the screen. I'm going to switch to full screen mode. Hopefully that works with no glitches. So this is an aerial identifying the subject property. It's on the north side of Thornton Avenue. just west of Southwest 24th Street. You can see it's close to the intersection of Southwest 26. You'll see in this aerial a house that's been demolished. The applicant is constructing a new house on this property. And as such, when we have new development, whether it's residential or commercial, our standards in Chapter 135 require a sidewalk. As with anything in Chapter 135, items can be appealed to the commission, and there's a process. And in the staff report, we provided you with the kind of the language and the criteria, the code that we're supposed to keep in mind when we look at these. Character of the area, different plans, the goals of the planned DSM and other sister plans in the city, such as Move DSM. Also speaks to character of the area. Have a drawing from the applicant as far as just their site layout. You can see the position of the proposed house on the lot. You can see the driveway that's there today, kind of the east end of the frontage. A lot of what we're going to talk about, I think, tonight has to do with grade. And so, we did have our engineering staff look at this. This is a topo map from our system showing the different grade levels on the site and the right of way. We can come back to this image at any time the commission would like to. Photograph of looking west. So this is the front of the property, the right of way. I think off the top of my head, I can double check this. I think there's about 15 feet or so between the back of the pavement and the front property line. This is a photograph looking the other direction. This one just actually came with from the applicant. Staff reports, you got a copy of that in your packet. And then this is the criteria for looking at type 2 design alternatives. As staff, we're there's a couple things I guess I'd like the commission to keep in mind and just understand from how staff has looked at this. One is, we recognize the work and thought that's gone into the discussion or the thought of sidewalks in the city in general and filling in the gaps, multimodal opportunities, and then also the direction that we've received from council at in the past discussions that we've had with you. Then also on top of that, we look at, the physical characteristics of the area and is it physically possible to put a walk in. And in this case, we believe it is possible. We recognize there are challenges. The applicant has spent some time and put together a nice presentation for you, and I'm going to help him go through it, where he'll make the case to you about obstacles that he sees to installing it. I guess the one thing I do want to say is that it's become evident to me in looking at and corresponding with Paul that there is an opportunity to move the walk around. It doesn't have to necessarily be in one particular position. It can vary. And I think in some of our earlier communications with him, I don't think that was clear. And apologize for that. We do have some base level standards that would suggest a walk needs to be, 5 feet back from the curb line, those sorts of things. But in unique situations, we do have the ability to work with our engineering staff and work with the applicant to find a path that makes sense, recognizing obstacles and grade. This is the response map. We sent out a notice to everybody within 250 feet. At the time the map was prepared, we hadn't received any responses. This afternoon, I received a series of emails. I do have them in the presentation. I'll go ahead and flip through those and let you read them individually. But since they came in late, we did not have the opportunity to compare them against the ownership of the map. and possibly update the map. And anytime you feel like I flip through them too fast, let me know and I'm happy to flip back. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have for staff.
Questions for Jason?
This is Dory. Jason, could you point out on that map where the nearest sidewalks are?
Sure. Let me just give me a second to get back to that map. So we have sidewalk to the west once you get past 26th Street, and then we have sidewalk to the east once you get past 24th Street.
Jason, this is Greg Jones.
Yes.
So you were talking about sometimes the city allows flexibility. Normally that walk the right-of-way line is about 19 feet behind the edge of the pavement, but you said sometimes engineering allows it to be 5 foot back. So essentially, if everyone could agree, there could be a walk along there, but it might be between 5 and 10 feet behind the existing pavement, which is halfway up that slope. True?
Yeah, yeah, there is flexibility to either have the sidewalk be very close to the street or to be further back. It could even possibly be partially or all on the property with a public access easement. It can slide around, to avoid a tree. There's a water hydrant at the other end. I guess what's been shared with me as I've talked with our engineering staff about the possibilities and the options is that there is a multitude of ways that we could find something acceptable. It wouldn't have to be a hard straight line that's exactly 5 feet back with a constant large retaining wall, which I don't want to speak for Paul, but I know that's been one of the items that he's pointed out that has concern with. So I know he has other items, so I don't want to just pin it on that, but I know that's one item.
And another question, Jason, is there is the city planning on doing curb and gutter and storm sewer or whatever Thornton doesn't have today in the future?
There is nothing that's like budget planned wise for it. I wasn't able to track down if how far out engineering, like a ballpark. So I don't have a date that anything is planned to take place.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jason. The applicant, if you're online, please say your name and address, please.
Is somebody working on unmuting him, or is Paul muted himself maybe?
I do see a hand up, so we need to allow Paul Von Evers to speak.
I'm trying to unmute him. Hold on a second. Looks like we have you unmuted now. Go ahead.
All right. First of all, thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the Commission, for giving us the opportunity to present to you today on this request for a design alternative. And I should also say, on a more personal note, Jan, it's really nice to hear your voice again after so many years where we used to be neighbors.
I was thinking that same thing, Paul, so thank you.
So very glad to be with you today. If we can flip to the first slide past the title, we'd like to just talk a little bit about us. My wife Jill is here with me. We recently returned to Des Moines after several career moves, but we were more than 20-year residents of Des Moines prior to that. We did restore the historic FC Waterbury House on Country Club Boulevard when we lived here before. We raised 5 children here. We've been very active in the community. I won't bore you with all the things we're involved in. And we have 2 grown sons who live in Des Moines, one of whom is a small business owner and the other one has a growing family. We can go to slide 3. So we moved back to Des Moines primarily for family reasons, but also because of the community and the lifestyle. And we were attracted to the south side because of the large yards, the mature trees, and the access to community assets like what we're talking about tonight, the bike trails and the sidewalks. We purchased the house at 2501 Thornton with the idea that we were going to renovate it, but it turned out to be too deteriorated. And so we have invested already a significant amount of money in removing that derelict house. And we've also cleaned up fallen trees and debris, and we've planted new trees. We just want to say at the outset here that we really support the objectives of Move Des Moines. As a matter of fact, we built a house in Fargo and put a sidewalk in front of that house. The lack of a sidewalk was frankly something we talked about before we bought the lot. But as we've studied it, an orphan sidewalk on our property, we feel, does not contribute to the objectives of Move Des Moines at this time, and I'm emphasizing at this time. We are willing to contribute to sidewalks on the block at such a time when there's a plan and for the whole block and it's approved and funded. Now, let's go into some of the specific reasons, if we can go to slide 4, why we think a sidewalk is problematic. First of all, there are specific site features that make compliance both impractical and undesirable. If we can go to slide 5. This is a similar picture to what you've seen before. As noted, it's a rural road. There's no storm sewer or curbs. And our one concern we have is when the road is eventually replaced, which we think it will be, our sidewalk, if we put it in, will inevitably be at the wrong grade for the new street. Now, if we can go to slide 6. We did measure the elevation. Our builder, Main Build, measured the elevation from the elevation of the street to the point at which, for the sidewalk, if we assume a 5-foot parkway and a 5-foot sidewalk, and then assume that we need a couple feet past the sidewalk in order to create space for it. And what we found is that there is about a 6-foot elevation difference. So excavating for a normal 5-foot parkway and a normal 5-foot sidewalk, we're going to end up with something close to a 6-foot wall of dirt along most of the property line, which we're concerned will be both a safety hazard and a major cause of erosion. If we go to slide 7, in terms of the safety and the cost, we believe that preventing erosion would require a wall 150 feet long and about 6 feet high, costing approximately $10,000. In addition to that, at the west end of the property, there would be a 6-foot wall of raw dirt created at the point where our property line matches up with 2555. We're also concerned that a 6-foot drop to the sidewalk would be a significant safety hazard. For example, we have a 4-year-old grandson who we expect to spend a lot of time there, and any other visitor as well. If we can go to slide 8. The city did propose an alternative. Jason mentioned that, and we may not totally understand it, but I think we do based on his comments today. His suggestion is to move the sidewalk farther up the grade so that it would be on the flatter part of the ground that you can see. That's my vehicle there on the driveway and the main built sign. And I think he's saying that the sidewalk would go closer to the back end of my car and the main built sign. Our understanding of that is that it would create essentially a 12.5-foot parkway, which is significantly broader than the normal requirements of the city street plan. In addition to that, we think frankly, any sidewalk, what we've been told by the arborist who reviewed our property, we did hire an arborist, we had every tree on the property tagged and evaluated. And what we've been told is that you start creating danger with trees when you're inside the drip line. You can see that any sidewalk would be inside the drip line of this very large and healthy oak that is there in the picture. And if we were to follow the city staff suggestion and move it up the hill, basically, we would be very close to the trunk of that tree. And what you can't see from this picture is directly behind where I was standing when I took the picture is another similar size oak that would have the same problem with a sidewalk that high. So there are two 75 to 100-year-old oak trees that are healthy, and this sidewalk as proposed by the city would encroach on their root balls pretty significantly. If we can go to slide number 9. There are additional issues on both ends of our property. The sidewalk really at almost any place you put it will require the removal of multiple mature trees. Jason mentioned that there is a city fire hydrant that is 7 feet from the street at the west end of the property, which would put it in the middle of a sidewalk if there's a 5-foot parkway. And if we move the sidewalk to the north of the hydrant, it would again threaten that other large mature oak tree's root system. In addition to that, as you can see in the pictures, there's a drainage ditch on both sides of the road. If you had a normal parkway there with the road as it is, you'd actually disrupt the drainage. Another part we haven't really talked about is there's a request to put parkway trees. And basically our feeling is we're all in favor of trees. We've actually planted 6 new trees on the property already. We would be happy to plant more, but planting them in or near the ditch is not a good place for the trees, and they're unlikely to survive. Okay, let's go to slide 10. In addition to those site problems, the variance really does meet the criteria laid out for variances. And if we can go to slide 11, I'll try to move through this quickly. More than 50% of the developed lots within 250 feet of our lot are designed and constructed consistently with the requested alternative. In fact, it's 9 of the 11 lots that you were shown earlier where the neighbors were notified. The next point says 3 directly adjoining lots. I'm actually wrong about that. There's 4 directly adjoining lots, and they're all designed and constructed consistently with the requested design. In addition, the design alternative requested would preserve significant canopied areas and mature trees along the entire north side of the 2500 block, and it would eliminate substantial undue adverse impact on the adjacent property. If we can go to slide 12, here is an aerial photograph of the area which you've seen before. I just want to call your attention to the lot at the corner of 24th and Thornton on the north side of the street. You can see heavy tree cover right there on the corner I counted 12 trees that would have to be removed or significantly impaired by a sidewalk across that lot. And if you look at the lot to the west of ours, I counted 7 trees that would be significantly impacted or removed by a sidewalk on that lot as well. So we are talking about major damage to the tree canopy in the area if we put a sidewalk. And frankly, whether it's 5 feet from the curb or from the street or 12 and a half, you're going to have major tree damage either way. Okay, let's move to slide 13. We don't believe that the proposed sidewalk advances the goals of Move Des Moines for many years, if and possibly not ever. If we can go to slide 14. This shows the city sidewalk plan, the neighborhood sidewalk plan, and it's blurry because it was hard to blow it up to this size. But you can see, if you can squint a little bit, that Thornton and 24th Street are not on the plan through 2024. And as Jason just mentioned a little bit ago, there isn't currently a timeline for when Thornton or 24th. And I'm bringing up 24th because in order to get to bus lines or schools by going east, you would have to have sidewalks all the way to Fleur on Thornton and all the way to Park on 24th. And there's currently no plan or any schedule for when those would be put in. If we can move to slide 15. Also, the Move Des Moines plan indicates that it will take 17 years to complete all Priority 1 sidewalks. And now Thornton is in the Priority 1 area, but it's not on the plan through 2024. And the plan itself says it could take 17 years. And just of note, I got a little chuckle out of this. The IRS standards for the useful life of a sidewalk is 20 years. So we're not even sure that it would ever be used during the useful life if we build it now. So if we can move to slide 16, just a quick summary. The sidewalk would cause a 6-foot-high wall. It would remove mature trees and endanger others. It would probably have to be replaced when the street is upgraded. It does meet all the variance criteria, with 9 of the 11 lots being similar, as well as the adjacent lots. And the sidewalk would damage the canopy of mature trees across the whole block. There's no current plan for sidewalks on that block or 24th Street. And so we think it would create substantial negative impacts on Thornton and the adjacent properties without really furthering the objectives of Move Des Moines. And we are making a substantial investment in Des Moines South Side, and we hope that you will agree to not burden the product with costs that don't add value. So if we can just go to the last slide. Once again, we really thank you for the opportunity to present this information to you. We're really looking forward to getting going and moving to the South Side. We've met all our neighbors. I think they're looking forward to this new project, and they support the idea of not putting in sidewalks at this time. Last thing I would say is that, having walked that block multiple times now, if and when the city wants to put in sidewalks, I think on the north side of the street, the best place for a sidewalk would be immediately adjacent to a curb when the street actually has curbs. And we would be supportive of that. We're not against sidewalks. We just think putting one in right now on our lot does not make sense. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions for Paul Von Evers? I will say it was a very thorough presentation, so thank you. Questions? Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this proposal?
Please use your raise hand function or *9 if you'd like to speak.
I'm not seeing any.
Yeah, I don't see any either, Chair.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition of this proposal or someone who has concerns? Again, raise your hand or use *9 on the phone. Okay, I'm not seeing any. So we'll close the public hearing. Time for discussion from the commission.
This is
Jan, this is Greg Jones.
Okay, Greg, thank you.
I have a question for Jason or Mike. Is there a way to, since Paul said that they were willing to bond or do something and pay for a sidewalk at some point when the city actually had a plan or a street plan or something, is there a way for us to do that?
This is Jason with staff. Mike, I might need you to chime in. I have a fuzzy memory that we've done stuff like that, or at least had somebody sign an agreement where they would not fight an assessment. Does that ring a bell to you?
Yeah, we've had a couple instances where there's been it's called a waiver of petition, I believe, and it gives up rights to, theoretically, gives up rights to protesting a future assessment. We typically have not used assessment in Des Moines of sidewalks, so likely it would never get to that point. I think the other thing we have done, though, is we have done some escrows for some improvements, and maybe Glenna could speak to whether that would apply for a residential project. I know we've done it on a couple of projects up in Sherman Hill regarding some street lighting, and that might be an option. I'll let Glenna speak if that's appropriate.
Yes, hello, this is Glenna Frank with the legal department. And Mike is correct. What we've done recently have been escrow agreements for this type of purpose. And I think that seems like the most reasonable option, as well as the most realistic, because as Mike mentioned, the city doesn't typically do assessments for sidewalks.
Thank you. Other discussion from the commission?
Yeah, this is Greg.
Okay. Yes.
Glenna, if you could help me understand, I actually was part of that project in Sherman Hill that Mike mentioned, but with an escrow agreement, would that mean that the applicant would need to actually put all that money into escrow and it could sit there until the city decides to take it and build the project? In other words, they still got to pay the money. Is that correct? Or is it an IOU sort of thing?
Yep. This is Glenna Frank again. And yes, that is correct. What we've done with the other projects that you've seen have an escrow agreement is that they have deposited funds with the city pursuant to an agreement. The agreement is sent to city council for approval. And then that money sits in an account until such time as either they do the work or the city does the work. So that is how we've structured those in the past. There's usually been a time frame associated with those. The money isn't held indefinitely. There's a time frame where we know by such time the work will be completed. So, yep, you're correct.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission? I personally would say I think there are some very good points brought out by Paul Von Ebers. I think there were several letters of support from neighbors who agree with his stance. Other comments?
Hey, this is Greg again. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Greg.
So we're in board discussion, correct?
Yes, we're in board discussion.
I kind of struggle with this one. I'll just throw a few thoughts on the table for folks on the board. I live in South Beaverdale, which means I have plenty of streets around me that, in fact, my own street I live on does not have sidewalks. And there's some that do. And I'm in complete support of creating safe, walkable environments. What I will tell you, because I walk and run around the city a lot, that streets that are heavy and busy with traffic, there's more of a need in small scale, slow residential streets. Sometimes that's part of the character, you know, that people walk up and down the street and cars go slow and people wave at each other. So sometimes that's just part of the character in these neighborhoods. And so I don't know that it's a one size fits all. And I was on Google Earth looking at this street, and there's definitely a chunk of street here. It looks like you're in rural Iowa. It's not. I mean, all you gotta do is go a block to the west and, you know, you're into curbs and gutters and wider streets, and it's a totally different environment. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or thoughts before we have a motion? Or does someone want to make a motion?
I have a question, please. It's
okay, Will.
There was a mention about waiving a petition. Mr. Von Evers was good enough to say that they're interested in helping support the plan whenever the sidewalk is implemented. But if the waive petition, could Mike or someone discuss that a little bit fuller, so that there would be a record of the applicant's ability or to fund the project when it's, or not to oppose the assessment when it's considered by the city. Could someone unpack their thoughts about that again for me, please?
Yep, well, this is Mike Ludwig, planning administrator. Again, on sidewalk projects, the council has not typically done assessments on projects. So the fact that the applicant would sign a waiver to oppose an assessment, it still takes the council deciding to do it. Doesn't mean that a future council might not think differently than past councils and may decide to start assessing for sidewalks. But at this time, that's not the typical process that's that our council has pursued.
Well then, Madam Chair, I move the approval of the requested type 2 design alternative to waive the sidewalk requirement. I move to approve the requested design 2 design alternative to waive the sidewalk requirement.
Thanks, Will. We've got a motion. We've had discussion. We have a motion. Tyler?
Jan Freed.
Yes.
Kayla Berkson.
Yes.
Steve Wallace.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
Francis Bogus.
Yes.
And Greg Wattier.
Yes.
Greg Jones.
No.
Abby Chungus. Abby.
All right. No.
Rocky Sposato.
Yes.
Will Page.
Yes.
Johnny Alcivar.
No.
Did you say no?
No.
Emily Webb.
Yes.
And Dory Browse.
Yes.
I have motion carries 10-3.
Thanks, Tyler. Very good. Now we're on item 9. We have a request from, I have to move my cursor here, McFadden Holdings, represented by Stephen McFadden at 1537 Army Post Road. Part A is determination as to whether the requested rezoning is in conformance with Plan DSM, creating our tomorrow comprehensive plan. And part B, rezone property from RX1 mixed use district to MX3 mixed use district to allow the property and existing building to be used for vehicle maintenance and repair minor use. Bert?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the commission, the request would allow for reuse of an existing building that was formerly used for auto repair. It would allow use of the property for a vehicle cleaning and detailing business. The subject property is located on the north side of Army Post Road. It's bounded by a mobile home community on the north and on the west. The Army Post Road corridor in this area was designated as RX1 by the new code that took effect in December of 2019. The RX1 is one of the least intense commercial corridor districts that we have. And I believe the reason that this corridor was designated as RX1 was just given the narrow depths of many of the lots and the fact that they are in very close proximity to a lot of low density residential properties. Here are some site photos that show the property as it currently is being used. You can see that they are already occupying it for the vehicle cleaning and detailing business. I should also mention that if the rezoning is approved, they would then have to submit a site plan for review and consideration by city staff. The site plan hasn't been submitted yet, but I would mention that it's eligible for administrative approval, but if they do need any design guidelines to be waived, they would be back in front of the commission on a future agenda. Staff has recommended approval of the request, but we were recommending that the uses be limited. I'm not seeing my staff recommendation here, but we were recommending that the uses of the property be limited to any use allowed in RX1 plus, we had said, plus vehicle maintenance and repair minor. And that vehicle maintenance and repair minor subcategory would allow for this list or these uses here that are on the screen right now. Are there really any use that repairs, installs, or maintains the mechanical components of vehicles, or that wash, clean, or otherwise protect the exterior and interior surfaces of such vehicles? And then they have these other criteria that are contained in the code that they must use. So I apologize, I don't have the staff recommendation pulled up. I'm not sure why it wasn't included in my presentation, but that was a recommendation. As far as the neighborhood communications that we received this one email that I have on the screen right now from a neighbor a few doors to the east. So they were really concerned about other commercial uses being allowed on the property, but the second paragraph here is the most critical. It says that if there's a condition stating that the rezoning could be granted for the auto detailing business only, they would have no problem with it. So as I mentioned, our recommendation was to allow really any use in RX1 plus vehicle maintenance and repair minor. So it would allow for a few more uses than just what this email asks for. And then we had this card here come back in opposition. But if you read it, it says, I'm not in favor if this can be turned into another car lot. Well, our staff recommendation would not allow for the car lot use. And then we just had this other card come back blank. And then here is the consent map. So if there aren't any questions, or does anybody have any questions for me?
Questions for Bert?
Bert, this is Abby. My only question is in the packet that I received, and maybe it's outdated, but it did include vehicle sales and service as a limitation under the staff recommendation. And I just wanted to verify that that's not being included.
That wasn't our intent. I'm going to while the applicant gives their presentation, I'm going to pull up the staff recommendation so I have it on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there other questions for Bert, or we'll have the applicant? Okay, is the applicant online? If so, yes, please state your name and your address, please.
My name's Dane Schumann. I'm the attorney that's done a lot of the paperwork on this application. My office's address is 2501 Grand Avenue, Suite B in Des Moines. The zip code is 50312. I appreciate you giving me the time to address you today. I represent McFadden Holdings, the owner of the property, and I also represent the tenant there, a young man named Anthony Kapaska. Anthony moved into, or began to occupy that property, I think back in April, and put quite a bit of his own money into trying to get the inside of the building that you've seen up to par, and invested, I think, about $6,000 of his own money to run his auto detailing business out of there. And this came to our attention, or this came to my attention at least, when he was notified by the city that what he was doing there was not a use that was contemplated by the current zoning classification that the property has. And so the landlord and Anthony came to me to ask about getting this rezoned for him. As I think Bert mentioned, or somebody did, the prior use for the building was an automotive repair business that was called Jayden Automotive. They since moved out, and then Anthony's moved his business in. As your staff said, this would be an appropriate use given the surrounding lots and what's going on just generally around the property. And, I think if the property is rezoned and this is a use that we can count on for the long term, I know that the landlord and Anthony both are planning to invest pretty heavily in paving the parking lot that you see there, putting in shrubs and vegetation, and just trying to get that entire parcel looking a heck of a lot better than what it is now. But they needed it to be rezoned in order to really have any incentive to put those kinds of investments into it. And it's fine, I totally understand that the code has to be enforced, but ever since they kind of got that notice and it hasn't been rezoned yet, they've kind of held off on that until it gets rezoned. I did receive one comment from somebody, the comments that I've seen, I guess, in opposition to this, to the extent they're really in opposition to the zoning, really don't have much to do with the zoning. I mean, I think, as Bert recognized, rightfully so, a lot of the commentary just has to do with conditions that are, for uses that really won't be contemplated by the conditions that the staff are putting on this rezoning request. We are in favor of those. Anthony just wants to simply run his auto detailing business. I did see, as I see now on my screen, and I had this in front of me, that vehicle sales was contemplated by one of the provisos, the first proviso that was put in staff recommendation. He does plan to perhaps sell a vehicle or two out of there at times. I know he's done that in the past. So I would like to see that stay in if we could. It's not going to turn into a car lot where he's selling a bunch of used cars out of there every day. He needs the space to run the detailing business. But that is something he's done, and he's bought a couple, 2 or 3 cars, I think, at auction over the course of the spring, and has just resold them there recently. So for those reasons, I'm happy to take any questions, but would really appreciate seeing this rezone to MX3 so that we can just do what Anthony would like to do and continue his business. And I would also add, I mean, if it stays as RX1, I'm not sure that the way the building is set up right now and what that building is, that there would really be much of an opportunity to use it as RX1. We'd probably just be back here asking for a rezoning if Anthony's forced out of there because it's not rezoned. So with that, I'll just take your questions.
And
Thank you. Questions for the applicant?
Hello?
Yeah, questions for the applicant?
Madam Chair, this is Bert. I did want to clarify the staff recommendation, which the applicant might want to respond to.
Okay.
As Commissioner Chunga said, vehicle sales and service, comma, vehicle maintenance repair. This vehicle sales and service here, that's actually the category in the use table that vehicle maintenance and repair minor falls under. So it wouldn't actually allow for the vehicle sales and service. So if you look at our use table, the category is called vehicle sales and service, which allows like fuel stations, vehicle sales, vehicle rental, vehicle maintenance minor, and vehicle maintenance major. So our recommendation would only to allow uses that fall under this line in the table that says vehicle maintenance or repair minor.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to address that? Mr. Schuman, do you want to address that?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I was a little confused by that. I thought that everything listed there in Proviso 1 would be allowed. But as it is, I mean, the main thing that Anthony's doing there is vehicle maintenance, repair, minor. He's doing auto detailing and everything that's really contemplated by vehicle maintenance repair. So if he can't sell one or two vehicles off the lot, I guess that's probably going to be okay. But I wasn't aware, I guess, that was not going to be allowed, that first clause.
Okay. Other questions for the applicant? Okay. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of the proposal? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Is there anyone who wants to speak against the proposal or has concerns? Oh, wait a second. I think I saw somebody. Hold on. Yes, we have someone. Yes.
Yeah,
Mr. Phillips? Okay, please state your name and address, please.
Yeah, this is Bill Phillips. I'm at 1602 Army Post Road. Our concerns with some of the other tenants in the area and residents in the area is the rezoning to MX3 for either McFadden's use or in the future would allow him to put other businesses in there in the future. What kind of, how are we going to know that that's not an option for them in the future?
That's an excellent question. Can we have staff answer that? Bert?
Yeah, well, as the condition is drafted right now, like I said, this vehicle sales and service, that's really just the category that the vehicle maintenance and repair minor subcategory falls under. So really this section here taken directly from City Code Section 134-3.5.19D. Again, this is a staff recommendation that any use that would meet this criteria here on the screen now would be allowed. So that would not cover vehicle sales or like major vehicle repair, which would be like auto body work.
Okay, I think our concerns were that the owner of the property is a known bar owner in the area, and we wanted to make sure that this that this rezoning would not be able to allow him to go with that.
Right. Yeah. The RX1 district would not allow for a bar use. So if they would want to put a bar in there, they would have to try to rezone it to another district. So you would be notified at that time.
Okay, this correspondence that we got was that it was being rezoned to MX3.
Well, that is correct. They asked for MX3, but our recommendation is that it be MX3, but the uses be limited to either the vehicle maintenance minor or any uses allowed in the RX1 district, and a tavern or any restaurant that sells alcohol would not be allowed.
Okay.
I misspoke.
All right,
a restaurant would be allowed, but not a tavern.
Any other questions for Mr. Phillips? And Mr. Phillips, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just say again, anyone else want to speak about this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. And now it's time for commission discussion.
This is Dory. I'll move staff.
Okay, any other discussion from other members? Okay, we have a motion. So Tyler?
Kayla Berkson.
Yes.
Steve Wallace.
Yes.
Carolyn Jennison.
Yes.
Francis Bogus.
Yes.
Greg Wattier.
Yes.
Greg Jones.
Yes.
Abby Chungus.
Yes.
Rocky Spozzato.
Yes.
Will Page.
Yes.
Will.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, thank you. Johnny Alcivar.
Yes.
Emily Webb.
Yes.
Dory Briles.
Yes.
And Jan Freed.
Yes.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thanks, Tyler. We've covered all the items. Director's report.
Yes, Chair. Next meeting will still continue to be virtual, at least until the months of August and September. So we'll continue to meet in this format. Also, just want to let you know that we did, there's a restructuring occurring in the community development and economic development departments. And we have advertised today 2 positions, one for planning administrator and one for economic development administrator with the city. And so there's reorganization that's occurring, and basically the planning staff that you see in front of the Planning Commission, including myself, will all be under a new development services department. Aaron Olson Douglas will be the director, and I'll be the deputy director of that. And then we'll be backfilling a planning administrator position and also a deputy planning administrator position for the city in the coming months. So anyway, we'll have some new hires coming on board to help implement the new code and the comp plan and continue planning for Des Moines. So if you have questions on that, please feel free to email me or call me, and I can give you more specifics on that. There is information about it on the city's website. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Anything else? Well, I'll adjourn the meeting.